And we're live. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in with us at 9 o'clock in the morning for our special second generation speech. I have with me Richard Stein today, who is a veterinarian, graduated from Cornell, but he is also a child of a survivor. His father and his father's family survived the Holocaust, and he's going to relay his father's story. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Stein.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So, what would I know about the Holocaust being born in 1954? You learn a lot through family. You feel a lot and you hear a lot. Um, so, before I talk right now, I was talking to Professor Gott Wallace. I said, "There's so many things we can talk about the Holocaust. Give me a theme." He said, "Well, let's talk about freedom." So, I just got an email 2 days ago. Freedom can be used so many different ways. This is freedom from socks. No more stress in ordering your socks. You too can be free. I ordered socks from this company 10 years ago. I keep getting emails, but now I have newfound freedom because I can send me socks automatically. So I decided I better go to the dictionary and look up freedom before I talk to find out really what I'm talking about. So the first dictionary, it said freedom, the act of being free. So I went to a second dictionary. I like this definition: the power or right to act, speak, or think without hindrance or restraint, not under the control of another. Then another dictionary had permitted or able to do an action, which I did not like. You need permission. So freedom can mean different things for different people. I have no means to make this a political, but this was in the newspaper last week. Basically, freedom for one may not be freedom for all. Now, freedom is something, it's a theme we've heard a lot. In Exodus, in the Bible, the Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelites came across the Red Sea. They landed on the other side and they broke out in song, Micha Melcha Be'alim. Thank you, God, we're free, we're away. And we must understand what it was like to see the chariots and the armies uh, defeated. And now there you are. And skip ahead, the partisan song before or during the Holocaust. This is a hope for freedom. Zonnig mal de geest den letzten Weg. In Yiddish, that means don't say you're taking your last step. Let's hope for that freedom. Juneteenth, our new holiday, is also called Freedom Day. Etta James, famous gospel singer, no more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage. I am free. Now, George Michael sang a song. Remember him? All we have to see is that I don't belong to you and you don't belong to me. Freedom. You have to give what you take. Okay, I mean, his freedom is about growing up, learning about relationships. Good for George Michael's. Richie Havens opened the Woodstock concert. Freedom, freedom. Well, I was talking to Richie about that. I met him on a couple occasions. I was actually there when they dropped his ashes on the Woodstock site. And Richie goes, no, 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 no. He was complaining about freedom. Listen to my song. And you listen to the lyrics, sometimes I feel like a motherless child a long way from home. He calls out, mother, father. So his freedom was a little scary. Beyonce, freedom from oppression and be persistent. Beyonce, freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom cut me loose. I'm singing. Singing freedom, freedom, because I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom run hell. Hey, I keep running because the women don't quit on themselves. And who can forget the opera? I'm free. I'm free. Now freedom tastes of reality. There's a boy who was deaf, blind, and blind. He got his senses back. He feels freedom. Actually, in his next verse, I'm waiting for you to follow me. He's becoming a leader now that he has his freedom. Now, remember Justin Smollett, famous actor who sort of said he was attacked? Well, he wrote a song after his problem. You see my scars and you know all my flaws. It's like freedom, freedom, yeah, yeah. He's stripped away from pretense and we see his naked self. Now, on the song thing, Chris Christopherson wrote a song and Janis Joplin sang it. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing don't mean nothing, hon, if it ain't free. I guess what they're saying is you can't have freedom until you totally lose all your friends, family, relationships, jobs. You tie down the responsibility. Well, that's very different from our original definition, and I guess I feel bad for Chris and Bobby McGee. So let's talk about the Holocaust. What did freedom mean during the Holocaust? Well, today, what we've seen on our TV sets for the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, is Ukraine. They're fighting for freedom. The people there, they want to stay. The government is all together. In Vienna in 1938, your government, your friends, your army buddies, everybody wanted you out. There was no freedom for Jews. You had to get out. So what was it like in Austria back in the day before? Well, I got to know some of my family, the ones who made it, and originally they came from a farming community in Austria. And in this farming community in Austria, they were farmers, were wealthy people, but they took their summer vacations. And, it was a nice, simple life, free life. They also took their winter vacations. Also in Austria, a wonderful place to be on the Danube in the summer and in the Alps in the winter. Um, they had a lovely backyard in the house. This is 1925. Where are we? And there's some grapes growing back there, and there's Rexy the dog. My dad liked Rexy the dog. He wasn't born until a couple of years later, but he got to hang out with Rexy. They had four daughters out in farm country. My grandmother's one of the children there. On the bottom is my Aunt Elsie. We'll talk about my Aunt Elsie later on. But once my grandmother, the tall one there, got married, she moved into a town, into a village out of the farming community. They were still not in the city of Vienna, but they could go into Vienna. That wasn't a problem at all. My grandmother got married to Julia Shapira. He grew up in Austria-Hungary, which became Ukraine, which is now Poland. So I guess he's from Poland. And it's funny. My wife says her family's from Russia, but I said, "Where in Russia?" She said, "Well, Odessa." I said, "Honey, your family is from Ukraine." So borders change. But once they moved into the village, the city, my grandmother, father started a business, a department store, started making money, and started to have more things in life. I guess there was a fur and skin store in town. And I guess there's my grandmother with her first mink stole. It was politically correct back then, and they were very proud they could afford this at the time. The backyard was beautiful. My dad could climb trees. It was walled in. The big churches in the background that they had in town. There's a little hill in the backyard. So as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, he could go up and down the hill on his skis. Fruit trees. He loved it. My grandmother and grandfather taken. Some of you may have been here. Some of you may know where this is going. Nevertheless, here they are. And I did never get to meet either one of them. And my grandma still, a little glamour shop on vacation. It was a good life for the Jews. They had freedom. They were part of the community. They took cruises. Whoops, here we are. And everything we do. I mean, they were like us. We're American. They were Austrians. That's what it was. When my grandmother went on vacation, she sent a card as a teenager back to She was very impressed at the library or the dining room, and she let her family know. And again, like we send our kids away for experiences, this is what happened. But not only that, we were very involved as Austrians. Here's my cousin Ignat, my great great uncle Ignat. Two of his sisters actually came to my bar mitzvah. They made it. Ignatz unfortunately didn't make it through the Spanish flu. Um, he was a wonderful artist. He was had the same studio with Mr. Egon Schiller, who now actually has a museum in the town of Thun, which is the village I'm referring to on the Danube. Some of his work was just gorgeous. This was a lovely oil painting I tried to buy. I have some of his works. I'll explain later how we got these things to America and how I actually got to be in possession. Um, but Ignaz, and I think as Professor Sandy said yesterday, Ignaz was a very common name. His name was Natz. His mother wanted him, oh, Nazi, come in the house, Nazi. But that's what, uh, the name Nazi did not exist after that. Like anybody named Adolf over the years. We don't name our children that anymore. We don't name them Haman anymore. And here's my father with his father. Um, my father was born in 1928, so I guess it's 31, approximately 1930. Um, my grandfather was a veteran of the German army. My grandfather was the Steins came from Berlin, and the family knew the top people in Berlin. You know these names, Freud and the other mathematicians. It was all the same club. It was the Jewish intelligentsia. Said that wrong. And my grandfather, too, inside his coat, always had his medals from the war. He was a proud German. My father even said when some of the Nazis first came in, grandfather outranked them. He could sort of tell them what to do. And unfortunately, eventually, he became a dirty Jew. He did not know that was going to happen, nevertheless. My grandfather had a sister, and that's a sister with her father. So that's my father's grandfather, who my father was named for. Why did my aunt have the oil painting? Again, she was part of the Berlin crew. Her husband was very involved in the Foreign Service. He was a judge. They had lots of money. They were successful people. So the handwriting on the wall. And when he was thrown out of his job at the prestigious position, he was a Jew, they gathered up their stuff. They left the country. And my poor aunt never even knew her nephew was alive. Never met my father. My aunt never met my father. Finally, in the 1960s, she found out he was alive. And my father had been living about a half an hour from her in New York for 30 years. So I was fortunate enough to have her in my bar mitzvah as well. Well, back to Thun, we had the Germans come in. They came in with a force during the Anschluss. Overnight, it became a German town. For my grandfather go to work, my great grandfather, he now had to have a pass. And on his pass, you see the Nazi symbols, the swastika, because now this was no longer an Austrian, no German country. That was how to be. So he went about his business as well as he could until Kristallnacht. On Kristallnacht, they took over his department store. He had a heart attack. He survived the heart attack. They were stuck in their house after that. There's no way they were going outside. He had loyal employees that would get him food. His job then was to be on the phone, the wireless, and make letters. But he had to get his 4 kids out of the country. They were busy. They knew what was going on. One of his daughter's husbands had been in the concentration camp back early 1933 when they let him out. This is your warning, guys. But he had to get his 4 daughters. Now, one had a husband, and this husband, he had family in France. He took one daughter with him. Aunt Mella took over into France. Little Aunt Elsie's picture I showed you, her husband was a very smart, prominent attorney, Les Sechel. And they came to America. I don't know how. They never told me. We couldn't talk about this with these folks. We just, if their expressions, we just could not talk to them. It was a different world. Um, so, nevertheless, Julius had two kids, and my grandmother, whose husband could not get a visa, so he had to get his daughter out of the country. And his other daughter, who was a widow, her husband passed away. Her husband was not Jewish, but her in-laws were taking care of her. They were taking care of her. Then they said maybe she's too much of a risk to take care of. They kicked her out. His parents to bring over. There was people. So somehow Julius got visas. This is in Spanish to Cuba. So now he has visas to Cuba, but he's in Austria. Cuba's a long way away. Somehow this man found uh, a ship to go to Cuba direct from Hamburg. Now they had to get from Vienna to Hamburg, which is not a direct line. I mean, you have to go through Czechoslovakia, go around through Germany. However he did it, wife, himself, his two daughters, and my father on the train. They made it up there, and they got there to Hamburg. Not only that, they got their stuff out. They were making all kinds of deals to ship things, to get things over to America. Yes, they had the visa to Cuba. Why Cuba? It's the only visa they could get. Maybe they bribed somebody. I don't know. But they got a visa they can get out. And then from Cuba, move on. But once they got to Hamburg, they're on that ship. It was glorious. They're on a cruise liner now. And they were being treated as guests on a cruise ship. I mean, food, all you wanted, being treated, no one telling you were a dirty Jew. It was wonderful times. It was a cruise across America, to I mean, West America, to North America, to Cuba. Yay, we're free. We're all on the ship and we're dancing and things are wonderful. And they get to Cuba. What happens? Refuge denied. No, we don't want you. You can't get off your ship. There's almost 1,000 Jews on the ship. All of a sudden, what happened to the freedom? No, we don't want the ship to St. Louis. You guys can go back. Well, my dad can tell me he remembers floating off of Miami, seeing the lights of Miami, hoping and hoping. He told me people jumped over to try to swim to shore. Don't know if they made it. He told me people slit their wrists because they did not want to go back to see Nazi Germany, but they were sent back. While he was being homeschooled, when they were locked in their house, my father was taught a lot of English. And when the ship was going back, again, great grandfather Julius was down in the ship's bowels with the other men on the wireless trying to find somebody who would take them. And eventually they found four countries. And the fact they spoke English, they were able to go off in England. It was so fortunate because the folks who got off in France thought they were free. The folks who got off in Belgium thought they were free. The folks who got off in the Netherlands thought they were free. And they were free until the Nazis came in and took over. We believe about one-fourth of those people were put to death, the ones who saw the lights of Miami. Well, they finally did make it to America. They spent some time as illegal aliens in England where they got off, but somehow great grandfather got passage on the Scythia, one of the last ships in 1940 to get across the Atlantic before the torpedo lane became ridiculous, and they made it to New York. And how did they get it? They got sponsored. Little Aunt Elsie is in America. Now she's sponsoring the family to come on over here. Not only that, Aunt Elsie is receiving all those crates and family belongings and rugs and paintings, and they're coming to America. They're actually getting out with some of their stuff. And on here you can see on the very top, went to Elsie Altschiller, living in Brooklyn at the time. And again, as they started making money and they moved up to American society, husband, the lawyer, became a shirt maker in this country, one degree in Austria, to do in America. So now they're free in America, but are they free? We have one daughter missing. She went to France somewhere about 1939, 1938. We're in America, it's 1940. There's things on the TV, on the newsreels. It's not good in France. And then a letter comes. It comes from the Red Cross. You couldn't send things directly. They're announced on the envelope. They have an address. That's in Nice, France. And to this day, I just got an email this morning from my cousin still living in that house, wishing me a happy birthday today. Thank you, everybody. And we're still very close. Um, on here, in German, I'll read it to you here. Chancellor writes, sind gesund, are healthy. Heinz here. Heinz is with them. Lily by Ann and Elton. Lily is with her parents. A lot of kisses, a lot of love. And to this day, when I get my call later on from the grandchild who's now living in Switzerland, he's going to say to me, Ricky, in French, all the kisses and all the love, because that expression has gone down through generations. And again, they were living on 22 Rue de Ganot. That's when they got the house. Like I said, it's still in the family today. That's where we are. They hid out somewhere in France. I asked them, Herman once. We don't talk about that. I believe there were parsons in the woods. There were, we don't know. I don't know. He didn't tell his kids. He didn't tell us. I mentioned Lily is by Aaron Elton. That's an expression with you when you're with your parents, you're dead. Lily was my great grandmother's. She's a tall one sister. She was gassed. She let her son know to do when you had, I guess, an active shooter drill back in those days. The kid knew what to do. He was born in 1934. So how old was Heinz at that time? Heinz knew, Mommy's not home. Dad, I have to go to this neighbor. He went to this neighbor. This neighbor can only handle this Jewish kid for so many days. Took him to a convent. Heinz became Henri. He's Henry now. And he was there for a few years, but obviously they got him back because he was fine in 1943. He's in France. I finally got to meet Henry a few years ago, and his English was wonderful. I said, Henry, your English, we call him Heinz again. Why is your English so wonderful? He goes, well, once my father found me and he got me, we took me back, we came to America. When I became 18, I joined the Air Force. I go, who's the Air Force? American Air Force. I'm a veteran. But then he found a French woman, and they've been living in Toulouse for the last 70 years. And they got postcards from people, a little postcard from Germany, from the Austria. I don't know, this was in 1940. If you look on the bottom, what it says, backwards, don't forget us. I don't think whoever these people are made it, but were able to get correspondence. So now we know they're alive, but not doing all that wonderful over there. So we started sending clothes, started sending money. Here's a money order, 50 US dollars, which is almost 2,000 francs, to Mina Druckmann. She was Mella's sister-in-law, my Uncle Herman's sister. She was a doctor in France. She had some prestige. And again, over the years, they grew their prosperity. And eventually, we no longer had to send them anything. And they came to visit America. And we got to meet. And many years later, Uncle Herman, Aunt Mel, and some of the family who made it over there. I did spend some time with them. And where do you think they moved right after the war? Uncle Herman went back home. I live in Munich. Who are these Nazis telling me I can't go back to Germany? And he got an apartment on Princeton Strasse. And Prince Regent Street, I found years later, is where Hitler lived. I think Uncle Herman really just said, here, in your face, I'm moving back and I'm going to live on your street. And in our country, 1947, they all got together, the ones who did survive. Some of them lost family. A lot of them, well, this is all family. We all lost family. My father's holding on to one, and there's my Aunt Elsie right here. This is what Aunt Elsie looked like in 1947. And Aunt Elsie was able to bring everybody to this country. And Aunt Elsie, who was the strong woman behind, and she didn't have the fear of the Holocaust that my father had as a 10-year-old boy. She had the anger about the Holocaust as a woman who was older at the time. When my kids finally got to meet Aunt Elsie was an American citizen at that time. This is the Aunt Elsie they knew. But were they all free? Elsie had an aunt, Emily. She was Ignaz's sister. Emily was never right. Emily was always sat by herself, always looking back to Austria, always looking east. So let me just end it now with a quote I heard 2 days ago. The quote was by a Jew, president of the Ukraine, named Vladimir Zelensky. I just want you to feel and to understand what does it mean for us freedom. Because all this American people speak about freedom, and they know what it is. How fortunate we are. Thanks.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions for Dr. Stein, just let me know in the YouTube chat, and I will relay them on your behalf. Thank you so much for that story and for the treatment on freedom that you provided. It's really eye-opening. You know, we talk about freedom a lot, and yet some things can get in the way of that. Politics can get in the way of that. And, you know, it does really make you think, and it makes you reflect on how fortunate you are as an American citizen to be free and not under one of those oppressive rules, right? You know, like the Nazi regime. So I'm just gonna give a couple minutes for any questions in the chat. Um, while we wait for that, the next event that is upcoming is a Zoom book discussion about the Diary of Anne Frank. And that link for the Zoom meeting is available on the Holocaust Memorial Committee's website for the interactive schedule. The interactive schedule is also linked below in the video's description. We do have one question coming in. What were the barriers to you coming forward?
My barrier to talking about this is I had no right to talk about this. I wasn't there. It was my father's responsibility. It was his family's responsibility to do it, but they never did it. But I mean, they should have, but they couldn't. But I had no right. But now that they're dead, I have a responsibility. So that barrier is gone. No one's going to tell me I can't or shouldn't. And whether they be proud of me, upset with me, I think they'd be proud of me. Oh yeah, they would. My aunt Mellish, she was tough, and when I had a little anti-Semitism hit upon me in Germany when I was living with her, she was ready to go over there and do battle.
Thank you. Yes, I think that answers the question very directly. Um, So the comments are, thank you, Dr. Stein, for this story. Very inspiring to hear. Thank you very much. So with that, I think we will end our YouTube live stream and certainly take a look at the schedule of events upcoming.